Hello, and welcome to DM It All, a show where we talk about D&D books and tabletop gaming history. This video is a sequel to our last video, Against the Giants. Check that out if you want more background on this adventure. To give a brief recap, Against the Giants had various giant clans team up to topple humanity. By infiltrating the Giants' base, the party learned that this alliance was coordinated by evil dark elves known as the Drow. Although the Giant Alliance has been dismantled, the Drow leaders who organized it still remain. The party will have to defuse the Drow threat by infiltrating their subterranean home base and dealing with them once and for all. As usual, there will be spoilers in this module walkthrough. If you're a player interested in this adventure, we recommend you stop here and share this video with your dungeon master. The first module in this new series is titled Descent into the Depths of the Earth. Whereas the Giant series focused on old-fashioned dungeon crawling, the Drow series opts for a hex crawl centered on pure exploration. The party will traverse a large-scale map while running into random encounters every couple of miles. To fulfill this concept, the book provides a robust wandering monster table, with over 20 possible results per random battle. Due to the nature of this campaign, the party will have to make some preparations for long-distance traveling. Thankfully, the party won't need that many torches, as the Underdark is surprisingly well lit due to its native luminous mushrooms. Rope will be a crucial requirement for this journey, however, as the party will encounter a steep crevice during every mile of their journey. Characters that are not roped together have a 1 in 20 chance of falling to their deaths down these crevices. The party can also bring along mules, but the module openly acknowledges that these creatures will likely die in their first encounter. At the end of the last adventure, the party acquired a map from the Drow detailing a route used to reach the surface world. By tracing the path back to its origin, the party can reach the Drow home base, known as the Vault of the Drow. Characters can choose to divert from this trail, but where they might end up is a mystery. Literally too, as it is up to the Dungeon Master to fill in for these alternate encounters. The module does come with a more quote-unquote complete version of this map for the Dungeon Master to use, but there is no additional encounter information for these optional areas. This larger map serves as a starting point for homebrew material, with the optional areas essentially functioning as writing prompts. Even if the party is interested in immediately wandering off the beaten trail, the first encounter is mandatory. A peculiar choice, as the encounter itself is largely unimportant, featuring a couple dozen Drow soldiers stationed at a checkpoint. It does, however, act as a way to introduce new players to the Drow if they have not played the Giant series before starting this module. Continuing down the main path, the second encounter will be a lot more interesting. 12 were-rats will spy the party approaching and rush off to alert their masters, a group of mind flayers. These mind flayers are in the middle of interrogating a Drow merchant, and they'll murder the poor fellow before the party arrives. The Illithids will then turn their attention to ambushing our unsuspecting travelers. Since the Drow are rivals to the mind flayers, the party can use this encounter to curry their favor. If the party is able to kill the mind flayers and provide proof of their deed, the Drow will offer the heroes free passage through the territory, regardless of any past transgressions. It unfortunately won't help them for the third encounter in this module, the Caverns and Warrens of the Troglodytes. This serves as the module's main dungeon, and consists of one large cave branching out into multiple smaller tunnels. As the name implies, this area is dominated by the aforementioned Troglodytes, foul-smelling lizard humanoids. There are over 100 Troglodytes in the eastern section, with many of them in small dens scattered throughout the map. There are also 100 bugbears located to the north, and 60 trolls near the center. All these races are loyal to the Drow, and will defend each other if one comes under attack. The party can pick off most of the enemy force in small clusters, but the sheer quantity of foes will ensure that at least one large-scale combat will inevitably erupt. That is, unless the party completely avoids the Warrens altogether. There's nothing really important in this area, and the exit can be easily found by heading northward towards the wider tunnels. If foregoing entire monster armies wasn't a good enough reason to skip the Warrens, the party will also be skipping monsters like ghouls, gargoyles, and giant worms. There is also an infamous death trap hiding behind an illusory wall near the northwest exit. This wall conceals the resting place of a lich that has nothing to do with the main plot or the Drow whatsoever. The lich will try and stay hidden behind his magic wall unless he detects magic users within the party's ranks, which will rouse him into action. This lich is a level 20 spellcaster with 35 spells at his disposal, the most powerful of which are Time Stop and Power Word Kill. Even if the party does manage to best this blasphemous bag of bones, his personal possessions are cursed to turn its thieves into undead wights. Gygax usually left it up to the Dungeon Master to come up with the names for a module's NPCs, but he personally named this monstrosity Asberdes. It's a name that has become infamous among many old-school players. Smart, or lucky, players will want to skip out on this encounter and transition straight on to the next adventure, the Shrine of the Kuo-Toa. The first potential encounter in Shrine of Kuo-Toa occurs near an underground river. Here the party will find a marooned barge owned by a strange fish-like humanoid. The fishman will offer safe transport for a small fee. Unfortunately, it's unlikely that the players will understand this offer, as the fishman only speaks the Underdark version of Common. An AT&D party in 1978 probably wouldn't have access to this language, considering that this is one of the first Underdark adventures. Even the Comprehend Languages spell was new around this time, recently introduced in the 1978 Players Handbook. Any miscommunication will greatly annoy the fishman, to the point that he will vent his frustration by attacking the party. The fishman is a level 13 combatant capable of doing 4 attacks per round. If that wasn't bad enough, he also has a large pet fish lurking inside the nearby river. He will command the fish to attack his own boat if it is illegally commandeered by the player characters. The party can use this boat to theoretically skip the majority of this adventure by taking it all the way downstream. According to the complete DM's map, this river eventually leads to the Drow's home base. But the party will more likely than not avoid such a discovery. Any would-be explorers will probably have their curiosity curbed after the previous encounter with Asberdes. The next encounter is a bit more productive, as the party will stumble upon the dwelling of some Sverfneblin. Gesundheit. They're colloquially known as Deep Gnomes, as this name is both easier to comprehend and say. Deep Gnomes are basically the Drow equivalent of gnomes, sharing the same dark skin and pale white hair. The major difference between the two is that Deep Gnomes are friendly creatures, unlike the vast denizens of the Underdark. Where the Drow were driven underground for being evil, Deep Gnomes went willingly in search of precious gems and minerals. The Deep Gnomes will be willing to help the party, or even fight alongside them, provided that they are paid with an appropriate supply of gems. The gnomes will explain to the party that the strange fishman they encountered is a member of the Kuo-Toa. The Kuo-Toa are an evil race of Piscine creatures, often prone to going insane. They used to offer human sacrifices to their goddess, the Sea Mother, until they were eventually driven underground by humanity. The Kuo-Toa wield a variety of unique powers, such as the ability to detect movement even by invisible creatures. The Kuo-Toa are also immune to poison, paralysis, illusions, and any spells that target humanoids. The Deep Gnomes will point out the next location on the party's map, the Shrine of the Kuo-Toa. Given that the gnomes know all of the entrances and exits to this area, the party can once again skip most of this dungeon as well. Just like with the last module, all the party really has to do is find the northern exit. The Kuo-Toa and Drow are also enemies of one another, so going after the Kuo-Toa does nothing to advance the party's mission. Regardless of their plans, the party will at least have to pass through the shrine if they don't want to diverge from the mapped terrain. Which is no simple matter, as the shrine is a massive structure. This building functions almost like an apartment complex, housing over 100 Kuo-Toa. Most rooms function as civilian living quarters, but there are military barracks scattered throughout as well. There are also large pools to the east that are used as spawning pools for the Kuo-Toa to hatch their eggs. For being predisposed to insanity, it's impressive that the Kuo-Toa were able to build such a comprehensive temple. Then again, that might be due to their deity, the Sea Mother. In the center of the shrine is a statue of the Sea Mother, which looks like a lobster-headed woman with pincers for hands. The effigy is surrounded by a large arena filled with green water and numerous leeches. The Kuo-Toans will actually not attack the party on sight, as visitors are common to the shrine, but they will expect the party to go through the leech-filled pool and make an offering to their beloved Sea Mother. Failing to carry out this specific ritual will have the Kuo-Toans frothing at the mouth over this sacrilege, and the party will have no choice but to fight for their life. The safest way through the shrine will be to meet with the Sea Mother herself. To do so, the party must take hold of the Sea Mother's claw while uttering her true name, and they have to make sure they pronounce it right. The Kuo-Toans won't find it funny if any snarky characters leave the L out of pool. This will teleport the party to the Sea Mother's underwater domain, where they will likely start drowning. The Kuo-Toan goddess will then save the player characters and make them indebted to her, demanding pearls and gems in exchange, roughly 50 to 100,000 gold pieces worth. Those not inclined to fork over their valuables will have a Geoff spell cast on them instead. Geoff spells basically force player characters into undergoing a task against their will, aka non-consensual questing. The characters with the Geoff will be compelled to bring valuable gems to use as an offering to the shrine. Stalling the quest will weaken the cursed character, and refusing it will bring about their death. The Geoff also turns its victims friendly to the Kuo-Toan tribe, as they'll finally be able to speak their language and will be unable to attack them. If the party is able to make a proper offering to the Sea Mother, their Geoff will be complete, and they will be given free rein to pass through the shrine peacefully. But, in all likelihood, the party will probably not even bother with the ritual and just start fighting everyone. Characters with more noble intentions might try rescuing some of the slaves that have been taken prisoner by the Kuo-Toa. There are over 50 slaves imprisoned within the dungeons of this shrine, and the party will be able to recruit some of the prisoners to fight against their Kuo-Toan oppressors. The more evil-aligned races will not be willing to help the party directly, but they'll be more than happy to kill some Kuo-Toa on their way out. If the party prefers loot to liberation, they can head to the structure located directly north of the Sea Mother statue. This is the palace of the Kuo-Toan Priest Prince, the religious and earthly leader of this tribe. Trying to raid the palace will have the guards triggering multiple alarms to mobilize the surrounding areas. If they manage to ring an alarm 3 times, the party will have to fight every last Kuo-Toan within the shrine. The Priest Prince will also try to flee the palace through a secret escape room. If he manages to do so, he will rally the Kuo-Toans in other regions to launch a counterattack. These other regions are part of the unmapped areas, so it will be up to the Dungeon Master to determine the strength and severity of this counterattack. Either way, the treasure hoard might not be worth the effort if it means going to war with an entire civilization of crazed fishfolk. However, if the party is interested in raiding the shrine, it will at least culminate in a memorable climax. Whether by bartering or by blood, passing through the shrine will finally bring the party to the main event, the Vault of the Drow. The map the party has been following soon splits into 2 paths. Down the western path is a heavily fortified Drow checkpoint, while the eastern path seems completely clear of any danger. Unfortunately for the party, there is a surprise encounter that is not marked on the map at all. Here, the player characters will come across a beautiful green clearing overlooking a starry-filled sky. Considering the party is miles beneath the earth, it won't be hard for them to realize something is amiss. Of course, this is a trap, and everything here is an illusion. At the center of this illusion is a nude statue of a beautiful woman, but this granite goddess is a succubus in disguise that will use her telepathy to disorient the party. Worse yet, her boyfriend lurks nearby, a drow vampire thirsting for blood. Escaping this menage a trap will be trickier than it looks. Afterwards, the party can diverge from the main path and continue traveling further east. This will lead them to a cavern dotted with numerous dead bodies. The party will then be attacked by 7 large spiders and their corpulent, oversized queen. The spiders' treasure hoard includes an odd statue of a drow woman with the body of a spider. Whoever holds the statue will gain the ability to create large webs and command other giant spiders. They will also be cursed to turn into a spider over the course of 66 days. The effect can be halted by removing the statue, but the holder will be convinced that they are the only one that can be trusted with it. Continuing along the main path, we'll finally lead the party to the Vault of the Drow, a gargantuan dome-like cavity within the earth. It's basically a miniature kingdom, complete with its own starry sky thanks to the radiation from the earth minerals in the ceiling. The Vault of the Drow itself is the largest encounter area by a considerable margin, as it is represented by a hex map covering over 6 miles. The majority of this region is made up of various merchant villas. There are 16 villas scattered throughout the vault, and they contain a large quantity of treasure in each location, as well as over 30 Drow soldiers. Speaking of soldiers, there are also separate buildings for male and female soldiers located on opposite ends of the vault. The Female Fighters Society is a lot more fortified than the male one, and contains more soldiers overall. They are also tasked with policing the noble drow houses that live within the city. The men, on the other hand, only have the authority over the lesser merchant clans. From this, the players can likely surmise that the drow are a matriarchal society, where the men are subordinate to women, both in social status and physical ability. The most important location within the vault is located to the north, the drow city of Erelhe-Sinlu. Accessing it will not be easy, however. The city is blocked off with a massive wall, split by an imposing gate at its center. All the side entrances to the city are triple locked, triple barred, and will summon a powerful demon if a non-drow tries to open them, so the player characters are better off traipsing on through the front entrance. The party will probably want to avoid fighting an entire metropolis of drow, so they'll have to rely on the old D&D dependable, deception. An easy way to accomplish this is to acquire some green drow cloaks. The players can swipe these garments off some drow merchants, or can even acquire them through the drow customs office. This office is located in a large black tower near the entrance to the vault. To receive a cloak, the party will need either a drow medallion or brooch, marking them as either an ally or a merchant. Once the party is inside the walls of Erelhe-Sinlu, they'll find the city to be a congested urban sprawl with crooked narrow streets, often illuminated by glowing signs. It is not only home to 9,000 drow, but a wide variety of monstrous creatures, including demons, undead, and even mind flayers. The party can encounter these creatures walking around the city via the random encounter table. One notable encounter from these tables includes some diseased beggars. If the party refuses to give any coin to these downtrodden, the beggars will try to touch the player characters to transmit their leprosy. The most interesting encounter, however, are the rakes. They are the delinquent youths of the drow, rebelling against their society. Given that the drow society is evil, the delinquents are ironically the most morally upstanding characters in this scenario. The party can potentially befriend these rakes and turn them into their allies. The rakes will also be able to tell the party more about drow society. Here, they can learn about the drow goddess Lolth. The cursed spider statue we mentioned earlier is actually a depiction of her. Lolth herself is known as the Queen of Spiders and is an evil demon powerful enough to be considered a god. Lolth is why demons and spiders both play such an integral role in drow society. Despite originally being a Greyhawk deity, Lolth's popularity has made her a mainstay in many of D&D's pantheons, including the Forgotten Realms. For the party to complete their mission, they will need to find the leaders of the drow that were responsible for the recent giant raids. There are 9 organizations in total at the head of the drow hierarchy, 8 noble houses, and the Church of Lolth. To find these noble houses, the party will have to cross a bridge located north of the city. The bridge will be heavily guarded, but finding a way across will lead to a raised plateau, where all the noble houses reside. The drow nobles have their own complex web of alliances and power dynamics, but the only faction of importance to the party will be House Aelserves. Aelserves is the family of a Klavdra, the priestess who arranged the giant raids that started this entire mess. House Aelserves originally wanted to instate a Klavdra as the queen of the drow, but the Lolth priestesses feared that this would diminish their influence over the other drow nobility. so the priestesses turned almost all of the other houses against Ailservs as a brutal rebuke. In turn, Ailservs turned away from Lolth and devoted themselves to the Elder Elemental God. The symbol of this god is the Elder Elemental Eye, which looks like an inverted Y inside of a triangle. The party might recognize this symbol if they played the previous Giant series, as there was a temple dedicated to this deity in the last module. The large tentacle that would annihilate a random character in exchange for a wish was just one facet of this primordial creature. Gygax later teased the Elder Elemental God again in the Temple of Elemental Evil, before the concept was largely forgotten about. While there is a canonical version of the Elder Elemental God in the modern lore, the original deity, as envisioned by Gygax, was never fully explained. And during the time of this module's release, all that was known about this eldritch antagonist was that it was ancient, elemental, and evil. House Ailservs tried to spread worship of the Elder Elemental God in order to expand their influence. Thus, the Giant Raids were actually part of their ambitious proselytization expedition. Ever since the defeat of the Giants, House Ailservs has been trying to regroup and recover. While there is a lot of animosity between the Drow houses, no outright conflict has yet broken out. If the party goes to confront House Ailservs, they will once again have to face a Klavdra. If she was slain in the Giant series, she will be resurrected by her male consort. The only way to end a Klavdra's ambition for good is to eliminate both her and her loyalists. While this would serve as a fitting final battle for this adventure, we're not at the end yet. For whatever reason, the party is expected to continue past this point and defeat Lolth, the Spider Queen Goddess. Unlike their mission in the original Giant series, the party won't be executed for abandoning their duties, so they can technically just go home at this point. But going after Lolth is mandatory if the party wants to play the sequel to this module, and put an end to this sprawling campaign. The Spider Queen can be located past the noble houses, and at the end of a long gallery. The walls in this gallery depict demons, spiders, and humans engaging in disgusting, unspeakable practices. Past the gallery resides a mound, known as the Egg of Lolth. This is the final area available in this adventure, as the only thing beyond it is an underwater ocean. There are 2 boats located on the coast, guarded by 6 ghasts and 66 ghouls. If the party tries to board one of these boats, the boat's figurehead will come to life. Failing to immediately mention Lolth's name will have the figurehead transform into a demon and attack the party. If the party is able to defeat this demon, they can take command of the vessel and use it to go sailing through the Underdark. But that would take them beyond the scope of this adventure. Back to the Egg of Lolth. Inside resides a greater temple where Lolth lives, and a lesser temple area used for sacrificial offerings. The party might want to raid this lesser temple, just to free the potential sacrifices being held prisoner inside. The greater temple, aka the Fane of Lolth, is the closest thing to a dungeon in this adventure, as it is the only location to be fully mapped out with multiple rooms. Most of the other locations consist of vague descriptions and various enemy stats. The Fane is a rather large dungeon, with 54 rooms in total, though like with most of this module, the party can bypass a majority of this dungeon. The upper floors mostly contain living quarters for the guards and priestesses that work in the temple. The floors above that are reserved for more important individuals, with the top floor reserved for the High Priestess. If the party investigates the private chambers of the High Priestess, they might come across a secret dungeon room, occupied by a naked buff man, who has been tortured to the point of insanity. Which kind of gives you an idea as to what the Drow are into. The party is better off avoiding these areas, and instead heading down to the basement level. This is where they can confront Lolth herself, lurking deep within the dungeons. A bit of a strange place for a goddess, but hey, she is part spider. Lolth doesn't have that much health, but compensates for it with a high AC, as well as the ability to fully heal herself 3 times per day. Naturally, the Queen of Spiders can create debilitating webs, inject lethal poisons into her victims, and can cast powerful spells, such as Confusion, Shape Change, and Gate. Lolth also has psionic abilities to increase her combat options as well. That is, if the Dungeon Master is brave enough to figure out the AD&D's psionic system. If Lolth is slain, she will drop a silvery egg on the ground. If the party is able to cast a Remove Curse spell, they can safely open the egg themselves. Inside the egg are 4 curious items: an iron pyramid, a silver sphere, a bronze star, and a crystal cube. Before the party can ponder the significance of these items, at least one character will become the victim of another Gesh spell. They will be compelled to return to the main altar area on the first floor of the dungeon. Here, they will find a projection of Lolth floating above a ceremonial pool. Touching this projection will allow characters to pass through the nearby wall, and into a portal that will transport the party to the Abyss, the domain where demons dwell. They will end up specifically in the Demonweb pits, Lolth's dreaded demiplane within the Abyss. Lolth herself is still alive too, as powerful demons automatically respawn in the Abyss whenever they die in the material plane. The only way to erase Lolth for good is to kill her on her home plane. To finish the campaign, it will be mandatory for the party to make the leap to Lolth's dimension. In many ways, this whole story was just an elaborate setup for the next module, the Queen of the Demonweb Pits, where this wild goose chase will finally meet its end. While the Giant series has been re-released multiple times across various editions, the Drow series has been stuck primarily in the first edition AD&D rule set. Parts of it, like the Vault of the Drow, did make later appearances, but not the entire adventure as a whole, which is unfortunate, as these are solid products that give an interesting insight into early D&D design. Unfortunate, but maybe understandable, as these modules are certainly dated. This was somewhat true for the Giant series as well, but those have the appeal of being straightforward dungeon crawls, with a couple nasty twists and turns. In the Drow series, the party can complete the adventure by skipping most of the dungeon content entirely. We talk about sandbox adventures a lot on this show, but the Drow series might be one of the most sandboxy sandboxes that ever sandboxed. Most sandbox modules at least have a reason to engage with the content, and the story escalates naturally. The party's goal is usually related to a nearby dungeon, and the strongest enemies are located deeper within said dungeon on the lower floors. The module will climax with the fight against the dungeon's most powerful foe, which will then reward the party with the dungeon's largest treasure haul. This basic progression is not present in the Drow series, as most dungeons have only one floor, and the party's goal is not contained therein, meaning they're incentivized to bypass it as soon as possible. The party might skip over the first 2 adventures without even realizing they technically completed 2 full D&D adventures with roughly 20 pages of content each. The first Drow module, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, doesn't even have a plot hook or climactic boss fight to tie the adventure together. Descent does a good job of building up the Underdark, but it doesn't really work as a standalone experience. The Shrine of the Kuo-Toa, on the other hand, is arguably more interesting as a standalone adventure than it is within the context of the Drow campaign. That's because the shrine is a captivating location, but within the larger story, it's an utter distraction. The party will likely get more content out of the module if they run it as a standalone experience, where the goal is to explore the shrine and pacify the Kuo-Toa threat. The fishmen are unique creatures that are immediately fun and memorable, the shrine serving as an interesting glimpse into their colorful society. The Vault of the Drow is easily the best of the 3 books, and it's not just because it's the only one with a focused plot. Containing over 30 pages of content, it's the most involved module in the series, featuring arguably the most complex monster civilization in D&D at the time. And while the party can still skip most of the Vault, they will at least have a cathartic final battle as they put either Eclavdra or Lolth to rest. Ironically, the fact that the party is likely to skip a lot of the content within the Drow series does make the campaign a lot easier to run. Newer dungeon masters might feel intimidated at first by the sheer scope of the map and the possibility that they might have to create custom material if their players wander off course. But most dungeon masters will probably be fine sticking to the map as provided, because it's unlikely that the players will wander far for no reason. Being dropped into a hostile land tends to encourage players to keep their eye on the ball and take the most linear path possible, provided your party is mostly sane. Most of the encounters are around the same power level of the party too, so they don't have to be worried about being underleveled while down below. In fact, Gygax purposefully made the early modules in the Drow series easy compared to the Giant series, so that players can get accustomed to the new environment and adventure format. The Drow and most of the Underdark creatures are less physically imposing than the Giants, and rely more on DM creativity and general swarm tactics. The only downside to taking the direct route through the Underdark is that it will have more random encounters than the optional paths. But this is a price worth paying if the alternate choice involves going down an unmapped tunnel and getting lost within the bowels of the earth. Wildcard adventurers might insist on forging their own path, but they will learn that heedless exploration can easily lead to death. In classic Gygax fashion, the module isn't overly concerned with balance, so if a custom DM encounter leads to a party wipe, feel free to chalk it up to gruesome Gary's doing. Gygax generally like to punish players for making dumb decisions, which makes the finale of this adventure that much more confusing. Going after Lolth in her home dimension seems brazen and reckless, especially since the Spider Queen wasn't even the catalyst behind the giant invasion. That whole snafu was caused by House Aelserves, a rebellious faction that was working against Lolth. Sure, Lolth is still an evil being, but she's not really up to any wicked deeds above ground. If the party feels like throwing their lives away for a noble deed, there is a notoriously evil god just chilling nearby. In our estimation, Dungeon Masters should honestly ignore all of the sequel teasers in this campaign, and treat the Vault of the Drow as the true conclusion to this series. Preferably ending with the party putting a Clovdra down for good. The locations related to Lolth function better as optional encounters for any characters foolhardy enough to take on an evil goddess. This is only reinforced by the fact that the Queen of the Demonweb Pits itself is an extremely disappointing module. But that's a painful truth we'll reserve for next time.